Yeah, I think we raised some really interesting points at the roundtable yesterday about CRM.
Yeah.
And it's really good to hear how busy you guys are. But do you feel that the 62 meter that we're on now, Rio, is that the best example, you think, of CRM custom kind of delivery? Is that the perfect kind of size for CRN?
I think the sweet spot for CRN is more around 70 to 80 meters, so 2,200 to 2,800 GT.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have the widest kind of range of platforms and of experience. We've done Choppy, MIMT, Yalla,
Choppy,
Cloud9. So only those over the span of 5 years show you how much we've done in that size. So I think our sweet spot is slightly bigger, but I think this is a perfect example where at 1,300 GT we've managed to put in what you have in Cloud9. So
it feels bigger than that.
Yeah, master facing forward, with its private deck in the bow. All of the maneuvers in the bow are underneath decks. In the stern, you have your beach area, you have big cockpit, and you have an owner's deck. So you have a lot of stuff. You have, apart from the master cabin on the upper deck, you have another two VIPs, a wide body. So, I mean, something that you don't get in any other boat. So I think that's where we took all of the experience of the larger yachts and put it into this size.
And keeping that ceiling as far as GT at about 2,800, 2,900, you know.
Yeah, 2,999. There's no way.
Yeah, it's a whole nother kind of level of, I don't want to say complexity, but
it is complexity, as in, but not that it's more complicated.
Yeah.
Let's make it clear. If you take someone that builds 100 meters and you tell them build a 15 meter, they'll be completely inefficient.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely different way to build things. Now,
Yeah.
I've gone to the extreme. But when you go over 3,000 GT, it's a bit like when you go over 500 GT. It's not just you're adding a little bit of volume, okay? You normally tend to have a big step. Normally above 3,000 GT, it goes to 4,000, which, to put it in terms and sizes, 1,000 GT is more or less a 60 meter. So it's like adding, instead of building 3 60 meters in one, you're building 4 60 meters in one. It's 25% more. This to try give an idea of how you really need to change the way you organize things, the way you build, the way your subcontractors are organized. On large ships, you even have a subcontractor, for example, for the interiors per deck. So it's different subcontractor per deck. So that really shows how it's a completely different way of approaching the build.
And there's a lot more boats in that space, but there's also some very established yards that do it very well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think right now there's demand, but there's also offer. So it's not as if there's a big gap that has to be filled. And I think also you need to, I guess we decided that the CapEx required, the organization that you have to build required to go into that space, we can use that money and that effort probably to do a lot more other things in other spaces that are maybe closer to what is our bread and butter, or closer to our future strategy, like services and so on. And maybe one day when we will have done all of that, we might decide to go into 100 meters. But today, we don't really feel the urge or the need. We've got plenty of 3,000 GT and 95 meters is a big enough challenge.
I think I appreciate the honesty there. And I think as the true custom builder, as in the broader Ferretti Group, you must feel a little bit of exposure to the supply chain issues at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I know that Ferretti as a group may be a little more insulated, but...
Yeah, but that's the point. I think CRN, like the other brands of the Ferretti Group, have a lack of being very niche, as very exclusive brands are, but at the same time have a lack of being part of a group that all put together is huge, and therefore we are the first buyers worldwide of MTU engines, and I'm sure MTU will treat us not only economically but also for in case of scarcity in a different way than a shipper that buys a set of engines every 5 years. You know, so I think CRN leverages on this group side in a tremendous way, and I think our clients feel a lot more secure because of that. For example, motor yacht Chow, CRN build 142, was built in 26 months during COVID and during the scarcity of parts. But still, we made it in 26 months, which for a 52 meters is, I would say, from scratch.
And do you think
pretty
that,
astonishing.
and that's only possible because of having that part of the wider group of Ferretti?
I think it was possible because of CRN. It was only possible to do it on time and not having, like many other builders, delays because we're part of Ferretti Group. Absolutely.
That's really interesting. I think, you're talking about, I understand that there's 3 yachts in build at the moment. That's at CRN?
No, at CRN we have 5 in build right now. Well, physically in the yard, it's 3. Another 2 are, one is being welded and the other one is on the drawing board being finished, and welding will start very soon. We don't weld inside our shipper in Ancona. For example, this one that is being welded, the 67 meter is in Marghera in Venice, where we have our own teams, but clearly we go where we have space, and we try to keep all of the builds instead all in the same area.
Do you feel that that delivery schedule is going to be on time as well? I know it's been a really, I guess, stressful time for a lot of the builders at the moment.
Right now, actually, we've been doing a lot of engineering before we start cutting. We've done a lot of research, plus the latest boats that we've sold, yachts that we've sold. The owners' teams really went into detail before we actually signed the contract. So the procedure of signing the contract was very long, mainly linked to the fact that we were studying in depth the project, a lot more in depth than normal. And therefore, when we started the build, we were a lot further ahead. So we are going very quickly. Thanks to the group we had already, and the strength of the group and the economic power, so you can afford buying generators and a lot of components a long time earlier before you need them, because in this moment it's not the just in time that is important, it's more important to have the stuff when you need it. So being part of a group, we had the chance of already buying stuff also if we're still welding the metal. So from that point of view, we are very confident that we're spot on time.
No, that's good. That's good to hear, because people have had some scary stories, you know, of some builders that perhaps not in that fortunate a position to have that buying power, or to have, like you say, engines on the shelf ready to go. It must help you in terms of that forecasting and planning and being able to say with confidence. 2025, 2026.
Absolutely.
Feels like a long time away though at the moment.
Feels a long time away, but right now if you want certain kind of engines, you need to order in advance. Generators have been a nightmare this year, so... Yeah,
I've heard. I also heard, actually, when I was in Cannes, I spoke with an Italian glass manufacturer, and they said their gas prices to cook the to cook the glass.
Then that is, we're going into another realm of discussions, which is the cost of energy hungry products, you know. So like glass, like steel and so on. Clearly those components are going up in price. I don't know if there is a scarcity of glass, but there is for sure a cost increase. What we're going to see again is scarcity in steel. Steel prices have gone back down, but I was reading the number of steel, how do you call them in English? Steel manufacturers, furnaces.
Forged.
Forged that are at the moment idling because of the cost of electricity all over Europe, and it's actually scary, because if they're not producing, we'll see who's gonna. I mean, we won't have enough steel for the world when we go further on. So. It's all things that I think we're gonna like when we had other crises of different kinds. Everybody in Italy, at a certain point, everybody became experts of spread between the BTP, the Italian bonds, and the German bond. Okay, up to 3 days before, no one knew about it, and for 6 months we all became experts, right?
Yeah. So now
we're going to become experts in
steel,
production of steel
yeah.
and of glass and so on, and hopefully in 3 years' time we won't even remember what it was all. But this is something we need to hope for.
In a crisis may be too strong a word, but it forces you to think about things differently. You know, we can't just rely on that ordinary delivery. Maybe you think of different materials, different manufacturing techniques, in-house production.
Absolutely. We cannot hide behind a finger. There's a crisis. There's an energetic crisis right now. Winter's coming, and not as
Game of Thrones,
but exactly like
true.
that. So you have to hope for a mild winter, and that's going to help. But if it's not mild, it's going to be a problem. So I think there's geopolitical things going on that I don't need to explain. Are gonna we're gonna have to be on quick reaction alert and understand how we can react and avoid having problems and so on. And I think having a group view of all of this makes it a lot easier, because we are seeing the production for the whole of our boats and of our group, which is one of the largest, if not the largest in the world. So it gives you a really good observatory deck to look at.
Yeah, and bringing on that level of expertise and experience across that range, as opposed to just being narrowly focused on custom deliveries, although obviously you do very well. That broad kind of knowledge base, I think, can help a lot, because we're thinking about things that we never thought we'd be thinking about at the moment.
Absolutely. And it's really good to be able to confront yourself with the rest of the company and understand and see what's going on. And every day you're learning something new. So,
and a point that we mentioned yesterday that I really enjoyed was when we talk about sustainability and hybrid, people using the term hybrid interchangeably with sustainable. You can't change physics. You know, the energy can't be created, it can only be transformed, and every time you move it, you lose some efficiency.
Heat.
Exactly. And so I think hybrid's nice. I like it. I think it's good to be able to come in silently, but we can't pretend that that's sustainability. You know, it's much more involved than that. And I liked your honesty there, because I think sometimes people say, we're doing hybrid, we've done our bit.
No, because I don't like greenwashing.
No.
And I feel that there's a lot of greenwashing, and I'm scared of what is going to be the reaction the day that a physician is going to turn up and go, excuse me, but...
Yeah.
So I failed my thermodynamics exam, okay, but I know very clearly that every time you have a step, you're gonna lose things. I think there are things that you can do, because every little helps, as we were saying yesterday, and there are systems that can help, depending on the size of a yacht, to try lower your footprint. And but I see a lot of shipyards talking about hybrid propulsion. That, it doesn't really work to reduce your emissions. It can avoid having emissions in certain areas for a certain amount of time, but you're going to be generating quite a bit of emissions when you have to charge up again.
You're still going to cross the ocean.
And I don't see anybody talking about what are we doing for insulation. The fact that, for example, here we're installing glass that has a bigger thickness or better thermal insulation, so that you need less air conditioning when you're inside the boat. And that actually, if you add it all up, uses up a lot more power than what you need to move the boats around. So
it's 1,000 little things that you can combine, right?
And if you put all of these together, then you can make a much bigger impact. Also when you're building, having all solar panels on our roofs. Now in Ancona, 50% of our 45% of our roof area is now, the surface area is solar panels, and we've already approved about 6 months ago, before the crisis started, the energetic crisis, to double it up and have all of the solar panels installed, because going forward it actually costs more than buying your electricity, or it used to. We'll see in the future.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
But that's something that really makes an impact. You know, and it's not just greenwashing.
Yeah, and sometimes it's things you just have to do quietly, right? I'll write about it when
Absolutely.
there's something interesting to talk about. But I think it's on the industry to, instead of saying we've just done this one big thing, we've built this one boat that's got batteries.
Yes.
Do all those little things and let them all add up. And yeah, I think that's the true way for the industry to be sustainable, not big gestures.
I agree. Then there's going to be big gestures when other industries that have much bigger capacity of capex are going to get there, from the transportation industry to the heavy industry. So we're talking about whether it's fuel cells, whether
we'll
it's
have to follow that.
hydrogen. We have to be followers because
Yeah.
we don't have the economic power to do it. Everybody's convinced that yachting has
I
loads of availability in capex and R&D. Our yearly turnover as an industry of yachts over 24 meters, I think it's less than the spending, or it's more or less the spending that BMW did, or BMW Group did, for their infotainment system.
Really?
Yes, as capex.
Yeah,
So,
and so, the same one, like I spoke with Caterpillar the other day, and I think it's the same thing for you. And you say, "Oh, what percentage is yachting for you?" I say, "Well, 2% maybe."
yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
But that's why you're not seeing
So when we're not
new
gonna,
engines coming out for yachting, because we don't get
25-year-old blocks and the same. Yeah,
absolutely.
We're gonna
So
follow them.
I think what we'll see is that as soon as either it's fuel cells or hydrogen, or methanol
Yeah.
and so on, we will follow, and we will follow super quickly. Also because all of our projects are already being thought. Okay, what can we do with spaces in the engine rooms and so on?
Soft patches and stuff.
Yes,
yeah.
so that we can try. Be ready, like it was Y2K ready, Y3K ready. So we need to be able to be ready, but and we will experiment. We're going to do it on smaller boats, like for example, on as a group on the Wallies, we are going to try on the small 43 as soon as it's ready to put a fuel cell generator, or anyway a fuel cell engine. But that we're going to link with the foils. So, you're trying to do different things where you're lowering the power you need so that these systems might already be good. And if it works, that's something that we're going to tell the world, guys, is it something that we can start following? Because then you need infrastructure. Because, it's all very nice, but if you don't have anybody giving you the hydrogen, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think these are the kind of things we can do. With Riva, we've done the Eliseo. We have a yacht, 37-footer, called Riva Iseo, and we've now made a version fully electric. It's going to become ready for market at the end of 23. It's already here. You can test it. It's actually just next door. It's amazing. We can do 25 miles of range. You can do at 25 knots. You can do 50 miles at 5 knots. But it's something that works for the lakes. It's something that we are going to be probably selling a lot in Austria and in Switzerland, in those waterways where it's either forbidden to have gas emissions, or where you are very welcome not to have them, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll be ready to spend the money. It's more than double the price, but not because we're making more money. It's just because the batteries, the electric motors and everything, and the systems you need to put in just cost the double. And but it's a good thing. I think it can open new places where you can yacht. But there it works. When you plug in Switzerland, they make nearly all of their
green grid. Yeah,
they have a good green grid, because in the end, if you plug in and then there's a carbon or a coal-fired power station,
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with the National Grid in England, the national energy supplier, and they just said, I said to them, what do you think? And they said, we'll make the electricity, and if we install the electrolysis machines to create the hydrogen, they can do that. And they said, we'll create the energy, and it's almost not on us to ensure that it's green. Let them figure that out, let the government figure that out, and we just need to be ready that when the hydrogen is created, or whatever it is, we just have to be ready to go. I think we think that we are pioneering and we're going to create the grid. We're not. The grid will come, and we cannot.
What we can do, for example, and this I must say, I was talking to some fellow competitors, and on these kind of subjects, we are actually quite open to discuss, because again, we all have so minimal capex, and we were talking about the fact that hydrogen can be a nice way to store power instead of batteries, and therefore with solar panels you could have you have water everywhere. You could have a green way to try create hydrogen, so that then you can store it there and use it when you need it. And we're all trying in our shipyards to put machines to do stuff like this to show that it's possible. But for us, I think we all have very clear in mind that it's more a way of showing larger companies in larger industries that this is something viable and doable, and if we've demonstrated it, why don't you guys invest in it and try do it, you know, because we will never be able to invest in machines that create hydrogen and so on.
Cool.